And with that, I'd love to introduce Josh McCowen. So Josh is basically a 25-year veteran, is that right? In the branding industry. He is the founder of Lofty Words, and he has his own introduction slide. So I'm going to leave it for that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and hand it over to Josh.
Okay, great. Get my stuff sharing.
Hold a second. Let me make sure that I got the right audio. Yep, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I am going to stand for this because this is how I have to give presentations. I want to make sure, is this going to be able to pick me up properly?
Katie, are you able to hear Josh? Katie Armende? Thumbs up, maybe? Maybe they can't hear me. You guys hear us? You guys hear us? Well, it should be. We'll just go forward.
Okay.
It usually works pretty well.
Okay, I'm going to try to, how do I turn off my video so that way it's not just a picture of my...
There's a little camera icon, you just hit stop.
Is that over here?
And that you should stop. You should say stop. Well, stop video. Stop share right now, and you should be able to see the full interface. And then at there's stop video at the bottom. Okay, I'll go back to sharing. I'm seeing the poppy thing.
Gotta find my window now again.
Let me make this the...
Okay, I think we're set. Is everybody seeing the right screen? Yeah? Okay, cool. Hello, everyone, in person and virtual. Thanks for coming. Quick note, if I look like I'm about to cry, it's because I scratched crap out of my eye yesterday. I am happy to be here. I'm not upset, so just so everybody knows that that's okay. I'm excited to share my knowledge, and I hope you guys find it insightful and valuable to your businesses. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about branding, strategy, and specifically why branding is a business tool. Let me turn on my thing. There we go. So let's talk branding. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Josh. That's me. No beard. I'm the founder and principal at Lofty Word. At Lofty Word, we focus on bringing clarity and confidence to our partners through brand strategy and strategic creative solutions. I've been a creative professional for 25 years. I've been a successful and, more importantly, an unsuccessful entrepreneur. I've traveled to Berlin, Germany to participate in the Startup Bootcamp Accelerator program. And I've helped grow a 3-person startup to over 100 people as the Chief Creative Officer. I love to talk shop, so please feel to reach out after the session and we can chat. And we'll obviously do that after this as well. So what is branding actually? Simply put, branding is the foundation of your company and its impression on the world. Your brand is all around you. It's what you choose to say and how you say it. It's in your colors and your imagery. And it's in the interactions you have with your customers and your team members. It's the feeling that individuals have when they interact with your organization, and it's the perception they hold in their mind when somebody mentions your name. If I ask you to close your eyes and think of 3 different brands, ones come up quickly. It could be brands that you care about, things that you use on a daily basis, or brands that you dislike. All these brands hold space in your mind for different reasons. And today we're going to talk about what some of those reasons are. There are many elements that make up your brand, but you can think of it as 2 major parts. Brand strategy is who you are, and brand activation is what your customers see and interact with. Brand strategy allows your organization to clarify its purpose, deeply understand your customers, align stakeholders, and clearly define your business goals. Brand strategy can be considered the behind-the-scenes work to define your organization. It's the fundamental truth of who you are as a company and culture. Aspects of brand strategy include your purpose and your mission, your strategic positioning in the industry, your brand values, the voice and tone you speak to your audience with, customer research and personas, competitive analysis, and goal prioritization. By defining your strategy first, you're positioning yourself, your outcomes with a higher probability they're going to speak well to your audience. When you build strategy, you create alignment. One of the most significant impacts of defining your brand strategy early on is creating alignment among the leadership team. Finding that sweet spot between your brand, the essence of your organization, your customers and their needs, and the specific business objectives that you have as an organization. Brand activation, on the other hand, creates awareness and brand loyalty by telling your story across many different touch points. Brand activation is your strategy come to life. These are the touch points, both digitally and physical, where your customers interact with, and it creates the impression of who you are as an organization. Some common touch points include your brand identity, your online presence, internal and external collateral, social media, presentations, advertisements, packaging, and many, many more. Depending on your industries or needs, these lists can change and cover many, many different touch points. But what impact does branding actually have on your organization? What is the benefit of developing a strategy and activation plan for your brand? We believe a consistent, well-crafted story and beautiful visual language breeds a strong business. 46% of consumers say they would pay more for brands that they trust in. Consumers are more than twice as likely to buy first, stay loyal, and advocate for the brands that they trust. Warren Buffett recently said that if you're an Apple user and someone offered you $10,000 to give away your iPhone for life, you wouldn't do that. Now, I don't know if that's true. No one's offered me that opportunity, but it is something I have to think about. My iPhone and my ecosystem that I use, Apple, is an inherent part of my life. So is it something that I would give away for an amount of money? I don't know. I'd have to consider it, but that's a strong point of brand loyalty. Color increases brand recognition up to 80%. Have you noticed a certain teal color that I use everywhere? Beyond the obvious marketing and public image implications, developing a strong brand leads to benefits from an operational standpoint as well. You'll make faster decisions. When you're guided by your values and your mission, you can make decisions faster because there's no uncertainty. You know where you're going and why. Your team will be better aligned, from leadership all the way down to frontline employees. Every employee understands how their work contributes towards building and maintaining a strong, consistent organization across all the different channels and platforms. At early stage startups, and not so early, it's easy for leadership to feel aligned because there's only a few people in that role. But as the team grows, without defining clear culture, expectations, and values, it's very easy to assume that everybody's rowing in the same direction, even though that may not be the case. It allows you to focus on only what matters. Defining why your organization exists, what you stand for, and how you want to accomplish that creates clarity. If your core value is safety above all else, it's easy to understand when an opportunity doesn't align with that value. At my previous company, our mission was to make cyclists faster. We did this through training plans and structured workouts. We had a legacy feature in our application that essentially was a challenge. It took the athlete out of their regimented long-term training plan and punished them for a week of this incredibly hard aspect of their training. And when we defined who we were, what our why was, what our mission was, it was so obvious to us that that did not apply to what we were trying to accomplish. It was actually a negative to our mission. So in understanding what you're trying to do, you can align your outcomes and what you offer to make sure that all those align properly. This begs the question, what should you do with your brand? There are many aspects in creating a successful brand, but what are the critical elements that you need to consider for your organization? Well, it depends. The stage you're at with your business needs to be considered and realistic expectations should be set. If you're an early stage startup, your capabilities are going to be much different than an established large company. The critical aspect is that you have an understanding of your brand and build upon that over time. Once you've established product market fit, you have a clear path to your audience, brand equity becomes increasingly important. I will say that there is a big caveat to this slide because there are certainly many well-funded early stage startups with a clear path to their audience. So it may be appropriate for them to invest heavily in brand equity. Depending on your specific needs in industry and stage of business, that will dictate what you need to do. There's no one size fits all when it comes to branding. However, there are 5 critical elements that we feel are important to businesses of any size. Number 1, define your why, what, and how. Your why is the basis of why your organization exists, not just from a financial standpoint, but from the purpose that you serve your brand or your audience. Your what is the thing that you do at a high level, it's your core value proposition, and your how is actually how you accomplish. What is it that you actually do? It sounds like an obvious suggestion, but so many organizations assume that this concept is common knowledge, and they'd be surprised at how varying the perceptions are among the team. You need to discuss these ideas, debate them, write them down. Actually write them down and use them in meetings to make sure that everybody's aligned and you're looking from your perspective of your brand. It's a simple but an important exercise. And if you haven't read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, I recommend you do it. I couldn't think of the right word. It's a great book on this very specific topic. Number 2, establish your brand narrative. During brand workshops, we use many different attributes to establish brands for our partners, but we feel that these 3 are the most important: voice, feeling, and impact. The voice is the story that your audience hears when they begin their journey with you. What is the language you use? What's the tone that you speak in? Do you want to be perceived as serious and reserved or joyous and creative? By outlining these attributes, it makes it much easier to speak in a consistent voice across all your different channels. Feeling. What is the feeling that your customers have when they engage with you? Depending on your offering and messaging, they could be inspired, relieved, or even scared. By understanding your audience, you can tailor your message that speaks directly to that customer. And then the impact, the brass tacks. What is the tangible impact that you have on customers' lives? This is where your service offering overlaps your customers' needs. Number 3, create your primary customer persona. Understanding your customer is important for any business, and a persona is a snapshot. It's a generalization backed by data of your customer groups. It's not a single individual, but more of a group of individuals that make up your market. Demographics about age, location, education, income, all allow for targeted marketing and baseline understanding of this group, but what is their story? What are their traits, behaviors, challenges? This is the aspect that allows you to uncover the humanity of your audience and speak to them on an emotional level that you can connect with them in the right way. And what are the specific things that this group needs? What are their challenges? And then what are your solutions to meet those challenges? For some client relationships, we develop many different types of personas. Your primary customer, fringe customers, ideal customers, and even anti-personas, who your customers are not. You'll always have opportunities to develop more personas, but at minimum, you should understand who your primary customer is. Number 4, create a messaging framework. Defining your brand personality and writing style creates a distinct and consistent voice for your external and internal communications. And that's important. It's both. It's not just one or the other. You need to be authentic with how you speak to your audience and your team members. Consistency in touch points is a critical aspect for your brand to succeed. They say a person needs to be exposed 7 times to a product or message to take action. If this experience can easily break down when there's counterpoints or the messaging you're using conflicts with other things that you're saying across different channels. This step particularly is also the one that allows for the largest testing. You can figure out, you can try different messaging and figure out what works and then refine that from there. And number 5, your visual language. Consistency in your brand's visual design is key to establishing loyalty and awareness. Your visual language should make an impact while telling your story and purpose. It's said that 55% of impressions are made by what we see first. And it's obvious. That's The first thing that we normally do when we see something. Does your visual brand represent your organization? Like we had this earlier conversation. Some basic elements of the visual language include your logo, your website, social media presence, potential presentations. But this goes well beyond these 3 or 4, but those are usually a really good starting point to consider. But what does brand look like in actual practice? Well, let's take a look at 3 different brands and how we use brand strategy to create a distinct, unique, and thoughtful visual identities. And these are all fictitious, by the way, so not real companies. But brand number 1, Lodi, a children's education platform. Lodi's wordmark is represented with a multicolor primary colors to establish the playful, youthful nature of the brand. Lodi's why is to empower learning for all children. So it's an education platform. They support this with their brand narrative, speaking in a playful, encouraging, and educational voice. They work with their audience to help them feel inspired, supported, and confident. And by giving children that use the program personalized learning, accessibility, and empowerment. While children will be the primary focus, jump slides here. Well, children will be the primary focus. The parents are the actual target audience, not the children themselves. With Lodi being a playful brand for children, the visual language must represent that. Bright colors, whimsical objects, happy children. These are all important to represent the brand that they're trying to create. Lodi's mission is to illuminate the path to knowledge, empowerment, and endless possibilities for all children. Showing positive aspects of learning is an important element of the overall brand feeling. And then Lodi believes that every child deserves the opportunity to grow and thrive, and they're dedicated to providing the tools and resources they need to unlock their full potential. So obviously this doesn't cover all parts of all the branding that they would need to do, but it gives a good sense of 5 slides of what they mean, what they feel, how they're trying to do that, and the emotions that they're trying to elicit with the different brand elements that we create visually. Brand number 2, Nimbus, a technology provider focused on the healthcare industry. Having a very different audience than Lodi, Nimbus's brand needs to create a different emotion. Specifically, they need to try to see innovative and professional. Nimbus's why is to make manual data entry an obsolete task. They speak to their customers in an innovative, empowering, and clear voice. They strive to make their customers feel relief, trust, and that they are informed. And they provide efficiency, accuracy, and scalability for their target audience. And their primary buyer is a compliance officers in the different healthcare organizations. Nimbus's product focuses on accuracy, efficiency, and compliance for medical record storage. Their mission states that our cloud technology revolutionized medical record management, eliminating the need for tedious manual tasks and ensuring accuracy, efficiency, and compliance. Here we can see a few alternate color schemes for their primary logo, tones of blue and black, which is a familiar color palette for the healthcare industry. And here's an alternate logo lockup. Well, it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but where it's in a box. There's correct padding on the top of that. And then lastly, brand number 3 is La Mesa. It's a southern Mexican restaurant with a modern take. We pulled colors from the bright, vivid neighborhoods in southern Mexico to represent the palette of this restaurant. Their why is great meals connect people. And they speak to their customers in an inviting, authentic, and creative way. They curate their dining experience to make their customers feel connected, enchanted, and exported while they're in their restaurants. And when patrons dine, they get authentic food, they get new memories, and exploration into a new cuisine. And their primary persona is the Culinary Explorer, interested in the modern take on classic recipes. The feeling that you get while at La Mesa is meant to transport you to another location through their atmosphere and through their dishes that they provide. Their mission is that Our ethos revolves around the belief that a good meal has the ability to connect individuals and create lasting memories. Step into our restaurant and embark on a culinary journey that celebrates the richness and diversity of Mexican culture. The connection experience that you have in the restaurant and having a great meal is a critical touch point for this particular brand. And Diego Plaza, the executive chef, believes that where flavors connect, hearts rejoice. So those are just a few quick examples of utilizing the brand strategy information that we have to create a narrative and then build upon that narrative in the way that we're going to connect with that particular audience. Of course, there's much more that would go into creating a successful brand established and launched, but these are good examples of that, some of those pieces that we talked about before. So what are the key takeaways that you can apply to your own brand? Your brand is many, many parts. It's not one thing. It's not your logo. It's not a marketing email. It's not what you look on Instagram. It's all of those things. Looking at your brand from a larger perspective is important to establish how you want to be seen in the public eye. To do that, you can focus on critical aspects of your brand. 1, understand and define your why. Actually write it down. It's really important. And use it to make decisions within an organization. Number 2, establish your authentic brand narrative to make sure that you are speaking from a place that is true to who you are as an organization and also resonates with your audience. And map out who that audience is. Understand your primary customers' behaviors, traits, and challenges. Use that in meetings. Use that to make decisions as a team from your customer's perspective, not from your perspective. Create a messaging framework that allows for consistency across all touch points and channels. Test it, edit it, make sure you have something that can define a repeatable message. And design your visual language to represent who you are as an organization. Make sure it's clear and it represents who you want to be. Ultimately, with care, intention, and effort, your brand can be a business tool that positively impacts your goals and objectives. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Lots of questions from me.
Yeah.
I'll start with Evelyn, if you have any questions first.
No, I'm good for at this moment, but I will have some in a minute.
So yeah, for any questions here, color, you talk about color, you pick teal. Is there, and I think in one stage one of the slides, La Mesa, you researched the colors in that region.
Yeah.
But how do you determine the color?
Well, I mean, there's obviously color psychology, and that's a very deep subject in and of itself. So that's worth at least a cursory understanding of or reference point to make sure that's like, you go to fast food restaurants, you go to grocery stores, everything's red. Red. It's known that red creates hunger and desire, and so there's reasons that you choose colors, but it all comes back down to who's your audience? What are you trying to represent? Again, with the example of Lottie, I don't know how I pronounced it. It's a playful children's brand, so primary colors is a really clear method to do that.
That kid stuff.
Yeah, but you could easily take that in a different way of doing, modern pastels that's speaking to the Pinterestification of children's lives and mothers, and so there's, there's psychology behind it, but you just don't randomly pick a color, is what I guess I'm saying.
So the color for Lofty is teal.
Yeah.
Why did you pick teal?
So that's personal. I love the color. I'm always gravitated towards a green-blue color. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's not a common color. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a lot of brands that have a teal represented, especially in the tech space. So those are the two primary reasons why we use it.
Is there a psychology reason, like did it convey trust, or what?
It's cooler and more relaxing than something more bold.
Yeah, it's historically, a big business is blue. Professional traditional businesses are blue. Green can mean a lot of different things, nature, but we're not a nature company. We don't focus on that. So there isn't a clear-cut reason why, from a psychology or color theory perspective, why we chose teal, but it's to kind of touch on a lot of different things. We didn't want to go purely green because we're not an ecological company, or we're not an environmental company. We wanted to have some professionalism, but we wanted to play with that a little bit. So we started to skew away from traditional blue, but still having which I'm glad you saw, is the calming effect.
Okay. And then if you don't mind me asking, who is your persona? Like your customer persona?
Yeah, we're small to medium-sized businesses. We're not large corporation, just our team can't handle that size of work. But, you know, in the past, we've been around for 10 years now. I just stepped away for quite a while to do the last company that I was with. But yeah, small to medium-sized businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I will say, one of the things that I always tell my clients is that you need to niche as much as you possibly can. But I don't take my own medicine. We don't have a very particular market of technology or environment or real estate, or we don't do that. We work with clients across the board, but it's usually the scale of business that they're in is where we're focusing on.
My first business, we did everything.
Yeah.
And the one that had a successful exit, they were very niche.
Yeah.
And that was what.
Yeah, 100%. Niching is amazing, and everybody should do it.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Niche is the way to go.
Yeah.
I had more questions, but
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was curious about what trends you're seeing in terms of like establishing your brand and kind of keeping top of mind. I know that we're using video, we're using, quick articles and that type of thing, but what other trends are you seeing that resonate with, and our personas are usually like HR directors, IT directors, CEOs of mid-sized companies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a tricky one to answer. I will say that in most respects, you want to be where your audience is. So in this case, I don't know if these people would be on Instagram much. I mean, maybe depending on what they're doing, but LinkedIn or other professional networks, trade shows or things where they're going to be. So as a general sense, be where your customers are, just in that sense. In terms of trends, I don't love the trends, but everything is coming down to smaller and smaller and smaller in terms of, obviously TikTok is a huge platform, and we don't use it specifically for our business, but we use it for a lot of our customers' businesses because it's a platform with a huge reach, huge amount of network, huge amount of virality. So, there's really no kind of trend that just works across the board, but I would say start to look where your customers are and then try to find the successful people in that market. There's nothing wrong with looking at other businesses that are doing something well and seeing, well, how are they doing that? Do they do YouTube videos? Do they do short informational clips? Are they doing, personal walkthroughs with their clients or private training sessions, things like that. So, one of the big things is just be where they're at. That's kind of a big takeaway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let me go back to my notes. So right now, with most startups, and I'll just my case specifically, we're so focused on getting the product out. We're working on the technology. And so for branding, for us, it's like, okay, we got a name, we got a logo, that's it. What would be your advice for a text, and there's a couple here, you think of that are two-person startups and they're really focused on getting the product out. What would your advice for those startups in terms of developing a branding strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a unique case. It's not even unique anymore, honestly. The tech startups is just the way the kind of the world goes today. But I would say that the product is more important in those instances. If you don't have a product, you don't have a company. But you can always understand what your mission is. You can always understand what your values are as an organization, as two founders. Like, do we believe this? Is this what we're trying to impact in our customers' lives? Those are the more important things than having a polished logo or a beautiful, don't get me wrong, I'm a designer at heart, so I want those things to be beautiful. But having a solid understanding of who you are as a company, that's what allows you to move forward in a way that you're not going to have to backtrack or start over. Again, you can pivot, you can make a choice, say, hey, this isn't working, we need to change our product. And if the pivot's large enough, of course, your audience may be different, what your solution is, what the outcomes it is. But the core values that you hold as a person and what you're trying to produce with this particular company, those should usually stay pretty consistent. So that's one thing I would say is that the brand strategy is the foundation of your house. It's what you believe in. And then from there, that house can look a million different ways depending on how you build it. So an early stage startup is just understand why you're doing what you're doing. Like what impact are you trying to have on your audience and the world at large? And then from there, you can refine and build stuff over time.
So in some ways, I'm actually wondering, is it better, you know, and yeah, one of your slides is the how, what, where, how, what,
Why, how?
Should it be more important to maybe talk about that first before you start developing the product, or?
I think so, but I don't think people think that way.
Yeah, and that's we were just developing a product.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is that people understand what their why is, but it's hard to articulate it. It's speaking in emotion language. And men specifically have a really hard time doing that. I mean, some are better than others, but it's just psychology. Like men have it's hard to express the way you feel about something, but you know how you feel about something. So it's important to start there. I don't think if you have an idea, hey, this would be a cool app, or you know what, I think this product might work. I'm going to see if anybody is interested in it. You can do that. That's totally fine because you're just testing your product. But when you go to something that you're trying to launch ready, people need to understand clearly what it is the value is. Not, oh, there's a new tchotchke, or oh, I have a new thing that's going to click faster. It's, well, why do I even care that it clicks faster? Like, what's the benefit to my life? And that's where the why, what, how can help establish that.
No, I mean, it makes sense, but I'm just curious about the comment that you made that you start building the product and then, you know, somebody's it almost like you start with the persona. It's like, who am I developing this for, and why would they even care about it? And then your messaging just kind of comes naturally. It's like, these people are really interested in this, you know, so there's less work to it. But
yeah, and I think it's an important aspect to not leave the brand for the end, which, you know, a lot of, just because it's not their forte. Like an engineer doesn't think in brand.
Right.
But if you can focus on the product and say, hey, twice a week or once a month, we should talk about why we're doing this and what the values are and what we care about in this. Because it just allows you to, honestly, in my opinion, move faster. Because as soon as you're aligned as a two-person team, everybody on that team going forward is going to be aligned. Because it's not the marketing person and the engineering person having slightly different ideas about what's happening. Like, the faster you can get aligned, the faster you can accelerate the business.
Okay, so, and I'm just going to, you know, and maybe this is a little too self-serving, but, you know, I'm a two-person startup, the other startup I was talking about.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually wondering, like, do you have like a startup package where maybe we could work with you for a couple hours to kind of walk through some of this or bounce ideas off you?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly do a lot of different ways. We have discovery, we have strategy, you know, we go beyond that to like actually implementation of different things. But yeah, we help clients in pretty much all aspects, whether it's pre-idea or they're, you know, been around for 20 years and they need to, hey, we need to revise this, or, you know, we've grown and what we have now doesn't really tell our story anymore. So now we need to refine that.
Okay. Well, I might have some business for you then. Okay. For me, yeah, my other startup. So
did we lose?
Yeah, it's just next.
Okay.
It's recorded though. I mean,
Yes.
I actually found your thing so interesting though. I have more questions. But what do you mean by a messaging framework?
So when I talk about messaging framework, it's not necessarily this is how we say this in every instance. You can do that. That's a really good approach. Normally that's when you're a much larger company. When it's a small team, you just want to understand, hey, if someone asks us this, or how do we describe this? Like, what do we say when somebody says, what's your product? Oh, well, this is our product. Here are the 3 lines that we say, or here's the longer version that's a paragraph and a half.
Yeah.
But it's having some way to consistently talk about what you are, what you do, why you do it. Going deeper, you actually talk about your voice and your tone. Like, well, what is our tone? Like for Lofty, we're strategic, transparent, and direct. So if we're wishy-washy, or if we're saying something that isn't from a strategic standpoint, that's not who we are. That's not how we talk. So it just allows the team, again, it's important as a small team, but it gets even more important as your team grows, because it's easy for Rich to be, well, this is how I think and this is how I talk. But as soon as you bring on, let's say, a social media person, they have a different viewpoint. They have a different perspective. They may say things in a different way. Without some form of, hey, this is how we do this,
Yeah.
it's easy to go off script and create those inconsistencies in the touch points.
Okay.
There's one framework called the story brand, and it's kind of like the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is, we use that occasionally. There's also many other frameworks, but it's really just kind of like not a plug and play because it does require you to think about it and talk about it, but you create this narrative of, well, this is the story, this is how we talk about it, this is the value it is, and it just creates you kind of guide rails about how and why you talk about what you talk about and how you would say things. Big companies like MailChimp, they have a really good brand voice guidelines. And it's a massive website that really goes into like specific examples of if somebody asks us this question, this is how we reply to it. We use these type of nouns and these type of verbs. Right. And so, they can be very minimal and guardraily, and it can be like extensive to where like, this is how we say everything we do.
Right. Yeah, you've noticed that even with chatbots, or if you go to a company, chewy.com or something like, you're going to have, there's a feeling and experience that's consistent across the board.
Yeah. And that's the entire goal.
Right.
Is that, again, they say that individuals need 7 touch points. And honestly, that number is probably even much larger with digital only touch points because there's no brick and mortar.
Yeah.
You could see something on Instagram, but all those touch points need to be additive to each other.
Cadence and tenor and
Exactly. Yeah. You need to tell the story across any type of media that someone will interact with you.
Yeah.
So it's a good, a good way to engage with you, is maybe like, we have the 5 points thing. And I'm actually thinking maybe with my other co-founder is, I'll have a session with them and we go through this, and then we can come to you and say, here's what we are coming up with, and then you bounce off and critique and give us feedback. Would that be?
For sure. Yeah, and we also do actually active discovery sessions where we have exercises to uncover a lot of these type of things as well. But again, there's really no right or wrong reason or can't think of the word, right or wrong way to do it. We help clients in many different fashions in that sense. So
I'm more of an engineer, so for me it's like slap a logo on it, get some colors, and then let's build it. But now I'm starting to think, okay, I get this. Mm-hmm. So and it's making me think that I don't really know anything about this. So
sure, yeah, and honestly, again, moving fast and validating ideas is one thing. If you're trying out an idea, say, hey, we need to see if this even works. If people even want this feature in this particular software set, that's different than branding. I mean, that's equally as important because you can have the most beautiful brand, well-articulated story, and no one wants it because
it doesn't serve any
needs or it's not connecting with a persona. But again, even from the perspective of, let's say you didn't talk about anything other than your persona. Who is this audience that you're trying to attach this object to? And then what are their needs? Why would they even use it? Well, how do you talk to them about that? How do you solve those needs? So, it's, again, I'm a brand guy, so this is all really important and I'm passionate about it. But to me, it's a very foundational aspect of any successful business. And again, there's a lot of successful products out there, but I wouldn't necessarily call those businesses that have a brand following. If tomorrow somebody came out with a slightly better version of this, without that loyalty, that brand loyalty, the connection to it, they could easily just say, well, I don't care about this tool anymore, I'm going to use this tool. So, creating those emotional connections is a really powerful tool.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. But I'll talk to you afterwards. I have 2 startups I'm working with, and then one definitely needs you, and the other one, well, we both need you. We need the feedback.
For sure. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So do you find that a lot of, how is ChatGPT figuring into any of this? Or, it's helped us with developing personas and messaging and that type of thing.
No, absolutely. To me, AI is a tool. I definitely think that, and again, it's very meme worthy, but people say you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI.
Right.
I use it. Almost all 3 of those brands were utilizing, some methodologies and research with that. I find for me, it's a very good research tool.
Yeah.
That I have an idea and I don't know how to articulate it, so I'll throw it into ChatGPT to get some context, and then cool, that's not how I would say it, but it's unlocked me.
Right.
So again, for me, it's a tool that allows me to not just bang my head against a wall, but have feedback. So even if I was sitting next to it, like, hey, what do you think of this idea?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with that. It's like, well, what did you think about this? Or I'd say it this way. It's like, oh, okay. And it puts me on a new path.
Us that are older than anybody else in the room, we would liken that to the robot in Lost in Space, Will Robinson.
Sure. Yes.
Well, like the And my colleague Chandra, who's actually taking courses on using ChatGPT, because we use it every day in our business, considers it like her super intelligent consultant.
Sure.
That's there with her all day long.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, we use Midjourney for image generation, and a lot of it's
Oh, wow.
just to try to get concepts out.
Yeah.
It's maybe not, this is the
Right.
final artwork we're ever going to use, but it's to just, hey, I mean, I can even go back to examples. So these are all,
What was the tool called?
it's called Midjourney.
Midjourney.
It's a complicated tool to use.
Yeah.
But it produces results that you can't really argue with.
Yeah.
But again, for me, it's very much, it speeds up my process because instead of kind of getting stuck somewhere, I can use it to help me unlock and keep moving.
No, I agree. I
think of ChatGPT like a calculator. Like I'll write something up and then I'll throw it into ChatGPT and say, and then I'm like, oh, there's a different way to phrase it. But I think it's a big mistake if you just copy and paste whatever.
Well, you can,
you have to go and edit it.
Patience,
but it gives you the idea, it gets things flowing.
Totally. It gives you a framework in some sense.
Yeah.
And in some way, I actually find it better than, in fact, this is where I think it's actually kind of a challenger to Google, is like, one of the things I'm doing is like, I look for quotes for, inspirational quotes from sport, right? And Google just gives you a bunch of websites and you have to go sort through it. And then ChatGPT is,
gives you the actual quotes.
Or you have to be very careful because sometimes they generate, like the first time I did it, it's like it just put up some good quotes. I go, who said that? Oh, and then the ChatGPT generated it.
Yeah.
So I said, I'd like to have actual quotes from people.
Oh, ChatGPT.
Here's a great one from me.
Right.
Yeah.
ChatGPT. Yeah, we'll see.
So, and actually my next startup is basically that. It's going to be, it's basically an interface for real estate agents to use generative,
Oh, cool.
so, and it's specifically designed for real estate agents.
Yeah.
You'll catch the next wave for real estate, I guess. Well, I guess the wave's still going on though, because the interest rate's still.
No, so actually right now, so my co-founder is like, that's his business. He does digital marketing with real estate agents, and he is actually, it's quite, for him, he's more busy now because the real estate agents are panicking.
Yeah.
Because it used to be you just listed and get 20 offers. Now they have to like, we have
Go
to
back to work.
We have to market this. And
Yeah.
you can't, it's not, so it's actually, in this case, it's actually being more, they're generating more business because they realize they have to actually, market and not just listings,
Yeah.
There's your persona. So he's your persona,
Yeah.
real estate guy.
Yeah. So then that, he's actually, we have a lot of the elements, but he started making me think we should probably, go at least go through the exercise and at least.
Yeah, and it's an important thing is because it all comes down to, oh no, we think the same thing, or oh yeah, we're aligned on this aspect, and unless you talk about it 90% of the time, there's going to be some deviations to that, and again. It's again, like I said, in the slide, strategy is alignment. And, being aligned allows you to move faster because
Everybody's on the same page, you all get, it's like, but because of this person being interested in this, my work is going to be around that instead of having to think about that all the time.
Yeah.
I agree with you. We nerd out on that.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So, anyway, thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. I found it successful. And actually, I'll have the video, but I'll actually generate a blog post.
Okay.
Using ChatGPT.
Because that way my she wanted to attend today, so.
So yeah, this is up. And actually, there's a plugin where it'll take the transcript from the video and put the 5 points. And then I'll just follow up and say, generate a blog from it and spit it out.
Yeah.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Big time saver. Well, I'm going to give you one of my business cards and that way you'll remember me next time you see me. We've met.
I'm so sorry.
Rich, I mean, like I said, you meet so many people. But weren't you involved in Clean Start with SARTA? Maybe not.
I wasn't